There, Terry back again. Hope I find you well, and I apologise for the lateness of this video. I've had a bit of problems with the computer, but it seems to be working at the moment, so cross fingers it stays that way. Anyway, I just realised I have yet to do any flash covers. So my Volume 1 collection is not as full as I would like, but I have Volume 2 to the present day, thankfully. Anyway, I thought I would do a bit of a mixture. My earliest Volume 1 flashes and the beginning of Volume 2. Yeah, so number 1 with Barry Allen and number 2 with Wally West. My earliest Volume 1 flash at the moment is this one, number 166, cover date December 1966, and the cover by Carmine Infantino. First story is The Last Stand of the Three-Time Losers, and it's written by John Broome and the art by Carmine and Joe Geller. Barry and Iris have been married for a month, and he is contemplating telling Iris his secret identity. Irony does crop up quite a few times in this story. And the cover story is called A Tempting Target for the Temperature Twins, and the artists are the same, but it's written by Gardner Fox. As usual, when these two foes get together, their one-upmanship usually leaves them the losers. Right, next we have Flash 167, February 67, Carmine Infantino, Joe Giller and Gaspar Saladino with the cover. This was one of my favourite Flash stories back in the day. I found out just recently that it was hated by many. The Real Origin of the Flash, written by Gardner Fox and pencil and inks by Carmine Infantino and Sid Green. Flash finds out that it was a magical blast that sprayed the chemicals over him that gave him his powers, and he meets a magician called Mopey, who created the blast. He explains that because the chemicals were owned by the police department and not Barry, he has to take his powers away. Mopey gives him the opportunity to get them back. And being there's an issue 168, we can presume everything worked out. Also in this issue is a Kid Flash story called The Hypnotic Super Speedster. And like the Flash tale, it's written by Gardner Fox and the art by Carmine and Sid. The next issue I own is 171, which is this one. This is from June 67. Carmine Infantino and Murphy Anderson with the art. One story this issue, Dr. Light defeats Flash with an electric blast and uses a gimmick to make him look like a piece of the sidewalk, hence the cover. It was written by Gardner Fox, and here lies Flash dead and unburied, again the art by Carmine Infantino and Sid Green. And next I have Flash 175, December 67, Carmine Infantino and Mike Espostio with the art. And this is in the Flash Superman second race. The race to the end of the universe. Two villains who may not be who they appear to be hold the Justice League hostage and force Superman and Flash to run a race with the losers from City to be destroyed. It was written by E. Nelson Bridwell, pencils by Ross Andrew and inks by Mike Espostio. The race does end much like the first one. No spoilers. I mean, this story is only 58 years old. Next, we have the swell-headed superhero, Flash 177, March 63. No, it's not. It's March 68. Can't read my own writing there, look. Cover and inside art, Ross Andrew with inks by Mike Espostio, and it was written by Gardner Fox. This head size is all down to a beam the trickster aimed at the Flash through a fake camera. The cure is all down to finding out how a minor bird was cured when being affected in the same way. And Flash 180, June 68. Cover and inside art by Ross Andrew, inks by Mike Espostio, and it's called The Flying Samurai, written by Frank Robbins. On a trip to Japan, Barry Allen must become the Flash to deal with Baron Katana and his android samuroids. There you go. Next I switch to Wally West's own book for a few issues. So here we have it, Flash Volume 2, Number 1 from June 87. Cover and internal art by Jackson Guice and Larry Melstead, and it was written by Mike Barron, and the colours are by Carl Gafford, and it was Happy Birthday Wally. Excuse the pun, but this first issue certainly hits the ground running. He gets a surprise party for his 20th. He has to get a human heart from New York to Seattle to save a life. He witnesses Vandal Savage committed murder. He stops a hijacking of a plane. He becomes a millionaire and then finds a present he hadn't noticed. And when opening it, it contains a human heart. He then realises Vandal Savage is in his apartment. Then, number 2, July 87. Cover internal art again by Jackson Guice and Larry Melstead. Colours by Carl Gafford. The story, Heart of Stone, and it's written by Mike Barron. Flash and Vandal Savage battle in Wally's apartment. Flash manages to drive him out, but he disappears. With a bit of detective work, Wally works out the identity Savage has been using. Wally claims the $6.5 million he won in the lottery. He treats Francis Kane, also known as Magenta, to a night on the town. Vandal Savage turns up to ruin things. Francis manages to hold him off, while Wally rescues this woman on the cover. Savage disappears again, and next day Wally takes Francis to the new mansion he just bought in the Hamptons. Next we have number 3, August 87, writer and artists as number 2. And this is the introduction of Billy Schmitz, who we see for 2 issues. Also Tina McGee, who lasts a fair amount longer. Also, as you can see on the cover, the first appearance of Kilgore, if that's the way you pronounce it, a being who needs electricity to survive. After receiving a speeding ticket, Wally returns to his new mansion and finds Francis has moved out. He then heads to Star Labs to be studied and tested to find if he can break the sound barrier again. On one of the practice runs, he comes across a gigantic metallic monstrosity in the desert. It follows him back to the laboratory, where it cuts off Schmidt's finger and enters the electrical systems. And through the computer, it announces that its name is Kilgore. It disappears until the next morning, when they find out it has taken over all television stations. They head down into town. Wally notices that Schmidt's finger has somehow reappeared. Number 4, September 87. Writer and artist as number 2 and 3. Title, Kill the Kilgore. Wally, along with Tina and Schmitz, visit Salt Lake City with National Security to discuss the Kilgore situation. Kilgore is in the building, electrical systems. Wally and the two security guards are able to defeat it momentarily. Wally decides to ask Cyborg for help, so heads to New York. Cyborg concocts a plan to scare Kilgore out of the electrical grid by shutting down all power systems worldwide. Only in comics, eh? Kilgore has built a large metal dome outside of Star Labs. It turns out to be a facility to clone a Cyborg Schmitz from the finger it had removed. Cyborg's plan is put in place and the power grid is turned off throughout the world. The clone escapes, and what you see on the cover chases the clone, but runs out of power before being able to transfer its essence into the clone. As I'm doing this in publishing order, the next publication was The Flash Annual number 1, September 87, cover by Jackson Guice and Ed Hannigan. It was called Death Touch. It's written by Mike Barron, and the artists were Jackson Guice, Larry Melstead and Carl Gafford. The Flash foils a robbery at a Chinese restaurant. The owner, as a thank you, gives Flash some advice. Flash should master his inner power, his chi. It tells him of a wizened sage, or a wizened sage maybe, in Hong Kong, who will teach him. He goes to Hong Kong to learn the Death Touch, or Dim Mak. Wally is involved in a fight, which he eventually wins, using his newfound chi. I don't know whether this story stays as canon, as well Wally actually kills someone in this book. Right, back to the first volume of The Flash, and my next issue is number 200. Cover date September 70. Cover by Carmine Infantino and Murphy Anderson. The story, Count 200 and Die, is written by Robert Kanigher, and the pencils and inks are by Irv Novick and Murphy Anderson. The synopsis: a foreign spy, Dr. Lou, brainwashes the Flash into thinking he is bringing hairspray to his wife when he is really attempting to assassinate the President of the United States. Right, next we have 201, November 70. Another Carmine and Murphy cover. 3 stories this issue. The cover story, $1 Million Dream, written by Robert Kanigher, art by Irv and Murphy. The Flash is stricken by guilt when he feels responsible for the paralysis of a young basketball star's legs. And then we have a new Golden Age story, as it says on the cover, with the original Flash, Jay Garrick, written again by Robert Kanigher, pencils and inks by Murphy Anderson. Jay and Joan, his wife, take in an outdoor concert only to find the fiddler playing the same old song of taking money from the crowd. And a reprinted story from Strange Adventures, number 73, October 56, The Man with Future Vision, written by Gardner Fox, art by Carmine Infantino and Bernard Sachs. I take it the title tells you all you need to know. Right, my collection now jumps to number 207, June 71, with a Neil Adams and Gaspar Saladino cover. The first of 2 stories this issue, The Evil Sound of Music, written by Mike Friedrich, pencils Irv Novick, inks by Murphy Anderson. Sargon the Sorcerer finds a way to regain his ruby of life by opening a door to a world of demons at a rock concert, but the Flash appears to oppose him. And then a swift little Kid Flash tale by Stephen Skeets, pencil and inks by Dick Dillon and Dick Giordano. Phantom of the Cafeteria. Kid Flash encounters an alien who steals food at super speed from a high school cafeteria. Now I skip to 209, September 71. This is the second 25-cent issue with 2 new and 1 reprint, cover by Dick Giordano. Well, the cover tells this story, sort of, other than Flash hasn't shuffled off this mortal coil. He's just broken through the speed of life, hence the title, Beyond the Speed of Life. Written by Cary Bates and Irv Novick and Dick Giordano with the art. Then we have Kid Flash in Coincidence Can Kill, written by Steve Skeets, art by Dick Dillon and Dick Giordano. This is about rings, gas, costumes and a genius called George. And lastly, from Flash 119, March 61, we have The Elongated Man in Undersea Trap, written by John Broome, art by Carmine Infantino and Joe Geller. This story was the introduction of Sue Dearborn, who marries Ralph Denby to become Sue Denby. After their marriage, they go to South America to honeymoon by the sea. They hire a yacht and Ralph goes skin diving. He has got an age, so she heads for shore to contact the Flash. Flash arrives and begins searching for his friend. This isn't the sort of honeymoon Sue was expecting. All right. The last issue of Barry Allen, Flash this time, is number 211 from December 71. Irv Novick and Dick Giordano with the cover. Both cover and internal art, actually. And it was written by Cary Bates. It was called Flashing Wheels. After Iris takes part in a roller derby, to research a story and sees an opponent as an alien for an instant, the Flash investigates and finds a plot to destroy the Earth. And then we have Kid Flash in a tale called Is This Poison Legal? A poor woman dies from eating a chemically poisoned chicken, and Kid Flash decides to help her brother bring the poultry producer to justice. And the last story is from the last issue of The Golden Age, Flash 104, February 1949. Jay meets his rival, his name Edward Clarice, who has tried to replicate the formulation of chemicals that gave Jay his powers. The effects were temporary, thankfully. Or are they? To the second volume with Wally, number 5, October 87. Cover and internal pencils by Jackson Guise, and it was written by Mike Baron. inks Jack Torrance, and the colours Shelley Elba. We meet Tina's husband in a story they call Speed McGee. Tina announces she's leaving Jerry, her husband, for Wally. Jerry beats Tina in a raged fury and then heads off to his lab to inject himself with steroid BQ19, like you do. This gives him super speed. Who'd have thought? Jerry follows Tina and Wally to a restaurant, trying to attack them. Due to his inadequacies with his new powers, he keeps running into things. Later on, he breaks into Wally's mansion, injuring Wally, and taking Tina. On his way out, he crashes into a fuel depot. This, of course, caused a huge explosion. And next in Flash number 6, November 87, cover of writer and art as number 5, Flash rescues Tina from said explosion. And the story title, Supernature. Tina believes Jerry will strike next at the home of his boss, Dr. Conrad Waltz. Wally runs over there in time to meet Jerry. They fight, but Jerry collapses. He has suffered kidney failure and internal bleeding, probably due to the BQ19, remember from last issue? Wally is given a name of a surgeon in Siberia who may be able to save Jerry's life. Number 7, December 87. Cover, writer and artist as of 5 and 6. Except Carl Gafford does the colouring this time. Title, Red Trinity. Flash runs to the Pulaski Institute in Siberia to ask Dr. Peter Olof to come back to the States to try and save Jerry's life. This issue we get to meet Red Trinity and Blue Trinity. Number 8, Jan 88. Cover, writer and artists as of 7. Except Michelle Wolfman does the colouring. Flash, Red and Blue Trinity battle at the Soviet border. Blue Trinity surrenders and Wally receives a message summoning him to the Green Lantern Citadel. He and Red Trinity all suddenly collapse. Dina, Conrad and Peter all return to Syracuse to treat Jerry McGee. Red Trinity is sent there to recover. Wally wakes up at the GL Citadel. The Guardians of the Universe address a large crowd of heroes, telling them about a threat from a new race of manhunters. This, as you can see on the cover, is a tie-in with the Millennium crossover storyline. Wally returns home, where his father confronts him, telling his son that he is a manhunter. He tells Wally that his mother is presumed dead in a boating accident. He tries to apprehend Wally, but Wally escapes. He later receives a message from his very much alive mother, but she informs him his father is dead. Well, that's it for this time. Otherwise, it'll turn into one of those 20-minute videos, and we wouldn't want that. I do hope to do a part 2. I have plenty of volumes of Flash to show. Hopefully, fill in the volume 1 gaps. I'll be able to show those as well. Let me know what you thought. Who's your favourite, Barry or Wally, or any other Flash you can think of? There's plenty to choose from. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. And most important, please comment. See you in the next one. Thank you. Bye.